Yo everybody, and welcome to the first of many Downdrain devlogs. The name's Desh, Soulcube's programmer, and I'll be kicking off the first devlog going through a quick state of the game, followed by my current task map and what I've been up to this past week. Before we begin, videos like this one are only possible thanks to the help of our patrons. If you enjoy the content, consider joining and supporting us to help keep the lights on at patreon.com/Soulcube. In Downdrain's current alpha state, most of the core mechanics and the fundamental gameplay loop is already down, it's just currently mostly placeholder assets. Because the core of the game is down, the next step has been looking at the results from playtesting, and while the closed alpha testers have been pretty busy, I can hand the game to my friends and they can play a solid mobile game prototype. The feedback I've been getting has been fairly consistent amongst my friends. Most people put the game down because they aren't motivated to keep playing. They continue repeatedly attempting the same level with the same loadout and the same mechanics and the same strategy because they don't know that there is anything else to the game other than what they're presented with. They aren't aware that there are 6 different worlds with their unique events and power-ups with a total of 18 unique maps which can be approached by a combination of 5 different creatures from a selection of 11. They don't know that any of this stuff exists because, I mean, how would they? This is issue number 1. We'll pin this one to the wall. Issue number 2 comes from players like myself. I stopped wanting to play the game. I had played the game so much that each random run had become stale. There was nothing interesting or anything that I was working towards rather than my obscenely high score. There was no reason for me to bust open the game on my phone when I was waiting for the bus or something because there was nothing new for me as an entrenched player to do. And so I needed to come up with a solution to please both kinds of players, the brand new and the entrenched. And little did I know that the stone that would hit these two birds was something that I was already planning to add. Enter daily seeds and weekly map rotation. By creating an identical seeded run with a new loadout and a new map, untied to the account's unlocks that everybody could play each day across the globe, we're creating a scenario in which everyone wins. The new players get a taste of all the awesome mechanics that they have yet to unlock, and the entrenched players attempt to use their expertise to take on the rest of the globe to compete for the highest score with identical RNG and unique and, sometimes non-optimal loadouts. So, how do we go about actually implementing this? Well, I first began doing research into how Unity's random calculations work, using the Unity Engine random class, the standard for the engine. I ran some tests and it turned out that I could pretty easily set a seed for a random generation given by the simple basic integer as a seed. However, the problem lay in this simplicity. The seed was universal among all random number generation calls. When there is only a single outcome dependent on the RNG, say the position of the next spawn, for example, things work fine and dandy. With a seeded random class, each randomly generated number will appear in the same sequence every game and all the spawn points would be identical across all runs. That's perfect. However, if we delve further into the real application of the generators, the amount of RNG calls differ between the different events. When a portal is spawned, only its position needs to be generated with random numbers. However, when a creature is spawned, the creature types need to be determined by RNG. This disparity between when more numbers of the sequence are acquired causes issues when RNG calls can be invoked by external factors, i.e. the player. Jump particles could be spawned at a velocity dictated by RNG whenever a creature is moved, independent of whatever the point in the seeded sequence the random class is currently at. This then breaks the symmetry of the run and in turn makes the seed pointless. If an event is independent of another event, it stands to reason the progress through both of their seeds should be tracked independently. Enter system.random, C#'s default way to handle the random numbers independent of Unity itself. Brought to my attention by Jack on the Soulcube Discord community, thanks buddy. Unity's random class is static, which means all the code relating to RNG is universal. System.random, on the other hand, allows you to create an instance for every independent random number generator, exactly what we need. Once I refactored all the random number generation to use system.random instead of Unity Engine.random, I added a little section to the closed alpha admin settings which allowed the selection of custom seeds, and it works! Well, I'm fibbing a little bit here. It almost worked. Everything was working perfectly fine, except occasionally on some seeds the actual stage will not be consistent between runs. The stage order randomization is dependent on RNG, but I made sure it was seeded properly. Yeah, running the desk checks, it looks fine. It should produce the same results if the same random numbers are generated. I don't know what's gotcha. An old school pools closed error bug, altering values on a prefab instead of an instantiated instance. This means that when the code was randomizing the stage order for a world, it would persist over runs, meaning the same RNG was being used to randomize the order of stages each run. It was just that the default order of stages that it was randomizing wasn't consistent. The solution to this was just to save the stage order in a variable, rather than modifying the order directly on the world prefab. An easy fix, but not an easy one to find if the mistake is made early. And with that, seeded runs are finally working. Now for the whole reason I worked on this, a daily run system. Each day, every player across the globe is going to be presented with a random seed, generated based on the current date, which will dictate 100% of the contents of the run, the starting map, the loadout, and the run itself. It'll all be entirely identical across all players. There will be a cap on the amount of tries you get to attempt each daily challenge, probably 3 to 5-ish, so players can't just indefinitely grind to learn every single spawn in the seed off by heart. This makes sure the game mode holds true to the core skill set of Downdrain, the ability to adapt and plan into the unknown. Each player will be put to the test with an identical unknown, so it is the fairest way to determine the top Downdrain player in the world on any given day. I'll be looking into implementing a daily leaderboard and rewards for those pushing to reach the top. With the basics on the daily run feature down much faster than I anticipated, I felt a little flustered as to what I should tackle next, and as such I moved to some more conceptual work for the Downdrain endgame. Something that contributed to the lack of motivation to play retrieved from the aforementioned feedback was the lack of a clear goal. The current goal is simply to get as many points as you can. The player isn't aiming for any sort of target. How are they supposed to know what a good amount of points in any given run is? And on the flip side, for entrenched players, when they get a god run going, when are they supposed to stop and get off their phone? The highest score shouldn't go to the person who spends the longest sitting slouched on their phone, and thus there needs to be an optional ending to Downdrain runs. I've discussed planning for this a bit on our Downdrain live streams, twitch.tv/SoulcubeLive, but we ended up settling on some carnation of a final boss. The twist is that the boss will be modular and dictated by the route that the player has chosen to take. To reach the final boss, the player must collect 3 unique world orbs, each obtained by beating all 3 stages in a world, and the different types of orbs, as well as the order they are obtained in, changes how the fight plays out. The first 2 orbs dictate the attacks the boss can use, and the third determines the stage and how the boss will be able to defend/receive damage. This means that the fight can be curated by the player to shape into a favourable match if the macro game is played wisely, adding even more depth to the player's chosen route past the accumulation of mech foods. All of this is subject to change, and it's just a loose foundation of how we're planning to approach the Downdrain endgame. Another thing that needs work is the reward system. Currently the game is just using a bare bones scaffold where players gain XP based on how many points they get in any given run, and when enough XP is reached to level up, the player is rewarded with a new egg containing either a skin or an entirely new creature. These eggs are currently barred behind a single time gate, come back in 2 hours, etc. Which isn't very interesting. It doesn't actually encourage playing the game. To spice up the egg system, the time gates are going to be drastically reduced. That's right, I said gates. Instead of one long wait X hours to unlock, eggs will be templated as complete a mission, wait X time, complete a mission, wait X time, complete a mission, etc. These missions will just be a typical sort of daily mission templates, but they will focus around encouraging run diversity, do X things in X certain way, etc. For those grinding the game, these time constraints will also become even less of an issue, with an in-game currency that will be given out as rewards, which can be used to speed up time and or re-roll missions. I'm sure you'll also be happy to know that the game will not feature any mechanically unique creatures gated behind a premium currency. Like the boss stuff, all of this is just an early concept planning stage, so it's very subject to change. This is just a little outline to communicate the direction and our design philosophy for the game. That being said, I'll be signing off for this devlog, and I won't actually see you in the next one, as Monarch will be taking over for a devlog looking into what's going into the art side of things. I'll catch you after that one, however, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a look into the Downdrain art division and the progress on the final boss and reward system that's to come. Join our community over on the Discord, links are all in the description, and we'll catch you later. Thank you.